not bossy.
Welcome in, everybody. Okay, so we're just going to start where we are. I love it because every time I talk to Wade Johnson, hi, Wade.
Hi, sweetheart. It's good
It's
to be with
been
you.
twice now, and I feel like
Yeah,
we're old friends. And
right.
every time we talk, I'm just like, wait. The world needs to just hear this conversation. And you're just like, well, then just push record. I'm like, this is what we're doing today. So welcome in. Now, we're gonna unpack everything, but I love the like authenticity of our conversations because we'll go one way and then it'll just be 10 other things, and that's what life is to
Right.
me. So
Exactly.
what I was just trying to talk to you about, and we'll get into your background and all that, but you are a coach, and I've been coaching not nearly as long as you. What I wanted to first talk about, what we were going to talk about is nobody really talks about how to grieve. And I know that we have a mutual friend in common.
Right.
And I know she was saying to me, and you coach her, and she was saying that you said to her, you need to grieve. And so, my question to you to start with is, what do you say to people that have blocks when you coach them? What do you say to them?
Well, I think it depends on what the situation is. Uh, so many times, whatever we're very passionate about, very impassioned with, is also very personal. It's very emotional. It's very spiritual. You wouldn't think that something like lifting weights would be that. And we'll get into this as we go. But the one thing I really try to reaffirm with people is it's okay. And when someone is stuck, whether it be I'm having a hard time physically, or in like what we were talking about with grieving, is understanding what the schedule of all that is. With grief, because that's something that you brought up, it has no immediate schedule. It has no finite amount of time where it's like, I'm going to grieve for this period of time and then I'm done and I can move on. Depending on the circumstances, depending on what created the situation where you feel grief, that can last the rest of your life. And it will come and go as it pleases. You're going to hear me say this a lot. The more you talk to me, the grief is not defining. What we do to deal with the grief, what we do to push through to the other side of that grief, and it is very defining. I spoke at my father's funeral, one of the hardest things I ever did. I had to sit down in my grief and go, how do I comfort my family? How do I comfort his friends that have known him longer than I've been alive? And what do I say that pays tribute and honor to my father? And that was one of the most difficult things that I ever did, but it also empowered me. And so I'm going to use an analogy that you've probably heard. And this situation so rings true. There's a herd of cattle, there's a herd of buffalo bison, and the storm is coming. Cattle will begin to run away from the storm. The bison run towards it. And what happens, we tend to relate mostly to the cattle because we don't want the trouble. We don't want to be in the storm, so we try to outrun it. And eventually, the storm cat, we get tired. We can't keep up that pace. And as we run, the storm catches us. Now we're in the midst, in the throes of that storm, and it takes a lot longer to pass through that. Where the buffalo run to the storm and run through it to get to the other end. And so that's what I try to teach, is whether it be grief, whether it be whatever the difficulty, whatever the challenge may be, is that there's two ways to fight the bull. You can run and he will eventually catch you. Or you can rear back and punch that sumbitch in the nose and grab him by the horns and take a chance of the chips fall where they may. Because those are your two options. See,
Mhm.
we have this tendency to believe that we are going to get through life unscathed if we're careful. And that's the biggest line of horseshit that we're taught ever.
Mhm.
People that are good people minding their own business, really bad shit happens. And you have to make a determination when those things happen, when the grief occurs, like we were talking about. How is it going to affect you? We deal with the fact that there's going to be some sadness, that there's going to be some things that are not pleasant, but deal with it and then move forward. And then once that occurs, it can return. I still mourn my father. Not every day. I think about him all the time. I have reached the point in my life where I can hear the echo of my father's voice in mine with things
Mhm.
that he's instilled in me. And that is probably the strongest honor that I can show in his memory. I try to tell people that when people pass on or whatever the case may be, we're talking about my father, is everything about him that was positive for me, the things that he instilled in me, it keeps him close because those things lived through me. Those things were so impactful that they now become part of me. My dad, Harold, you can hear him in my voice. And that makes the stories that I tell about him not only much more believable, but more vibrant, and they carry weight. And so grief is one of those things where I'm like, be prepared to deal with it, give it its due. And as opposed to what we have this tendency to do, and the person that we're discussing has a tendency to do, is we carry our grief sometimes like it's a badge of honor. We carry the weight of it like it's our responsibility. And that's not how it works. That's not an effective way to make the grieving process then becomes a very negative thing.
Wait, can you
And
sorry to interrupt you. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean we wear it? Like, if the
well,
person you mean if the person's alive or if they're dead, does it not
well,
matter?
let's say like whatever the situation may be, anything traumatic that creates grief, we tend to carry that. We tend to talk about the death of that person versus all the cool stuff. We have these last moment snapshots of someone's life. Why?
Mm,
Why? You know, if they could have gone out a different way, I'm sure they would have. If we got to choose, I'm sure we would all choose. I'm going to be in motion and I'm just going to explode and that'll be it. Or I'm going to go to sleep one night and I'm punching out. See you guys. That's not a lot of times. That's not how it happens. And then we have this tendency because when we're children, my son lives in Arizona, for example. If I were to punch out, well, I wasn't there. Of course he wasn't there. He has his own family. He has his own home. I would never want him to feel bad or carry anything cumbersome because he wasn't here. I did everything I could where he could become this great self-sufficient human being that he is. And so we tend to revert to these small snapshots and we hold on to that. You know, I don't want to, I was there. I spoke for my dad's funeral. I prefer to remember him when I was in this little kit where there's a picture of me. My dad was this mountain of a man. He would always grill with a charcoal grill, and I was little bitty tapper. There's a picture of me with his tools next to the grill, and I'm so little I'm in my underwear. And I'm out there watching him, just enthralled that this guy can start a fire and cook all this food, and it's the most amazing thing. I'm like 2.5 years old, and I would much rather remember that or difficult adult like conversations that he and I had to have as I was growing up, or his enthrallment over something I achieved. But all he did was tell me and preach at me, you can do this. You can be all that you want to be. Be the very best version of you that you can be. And that will always be enough. But instead, we carry this knapsack of burdens, and the best thing we can do is put them down. Stop carrying it.
No, I love that. I love Harold. I love that you had that in your dad. Now, what would you say to people that get to your bench, right? Because you, and we'll get into it, but you're very accomplished power lifter and musician, and you coach amazing people to do great things. What do you say when someone comes to you and they're trying to achieve their goals, but they're grieving maybe someone that's alive, a relationship, they're down and they wear a badge of honor and they're negative? How do you deal with that as a coach for them hitting their goals and facing their fears? What would you say?
Well, in all situations like that, even as something like, as an example, being a mother, that's something that you have experience with. We have this tendency to go, if I do something for me, that is selfish. I 100% disagree. Self investment is vital, especially for moms, especially for people that are going through a difficult time. You are never going to be prepared to be the best version of the mother that you want to be, or the girlfriend that you want to be, or whatever the situation that you're in. If the relationship is in a tough spot, just because it's tough doesn't mean that it's awful and that it's bad. It's just you're going through a tough spot. But the first thing that I always try to reiterate is self-investment. Not only is it great for you, it puts you in a position to where you are prepared to help someone else with whatever they're doing. And in this case, if you have the skill set and the scope to take care of yourself, even in very difficult moments, because again, nobody's exempt, nobody escapes it, it's going to happen. When you can still self invest and still find the positive in that, that allows you to have energy to deal with difficult moments and difficult people. So I try to look at making sure that the person understands their self, their 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 value of self. That I don't give a shit what anyone has to say, including myself. What I care about is that person understands is not only are they enough, they're more than enough. Have the difficult conversations with whom you have to, whatever the case may be. State your piece and then move on. Don't give it more energy than that, but give yourself the self-love and grace that is required, because we don't. We're not good at giving ourselves a little bit of grace. We always think we're the exception to the rule. I'm going to power through this. No, you're fucking not. You're not. How many times have you gone, I was wrong, ever been wrong? It's happened to me. We look at other people's issues and we have an answer. And then when we look in the mirror, we don't practice what we preach. And I, both in life and in coaching, more than once, I've had to go, this is exactly the scenario that I've had to coach people through. It's time for me to suck it up. I'm going to have to do exactly what I've told one of my pupils to do, regardless of the circumstances, that, and whoever's at fault for whatever the problem may be. That self-value is paramount. That's the number one priority.
No, I think that's everything. Now, have you ever fired a client because they couldn't get there? And
Uh, for that, no. Have I fired a client because they wouldn't do the work or show up or be part of the team? Or yes, I have gone, you know what? I don't think this is going to be a fit, because I firmly believe it doesn't matter how much I know. If I can't convey that knowledge to you, if I can't help you develop, then all of this experience, anything, there's no value in it. What that means is, being the athlete, being the coach, is extremely collaborative. I think it's even more so. I'm sure there's people that will disagree with me, but when you are a female athlete and you're coached by a male, that collaboration, I think, is even more entrenched, you know. And let's just be honest, because I'm just going to shoot straight with you, and I'm not
I
going to
love it.
pull any punches. And if you got to edit my language, I apologize going forward.
Nope.
But
Nope.
let's be clear about something. You guys deal with shit that we do not deal with. Now, I'm not. Now, we've had this conversation. I've said this to you before. If you're waiting for me because I'm an old white guy with a penis to apologize for you for that, that's never going to fucking happen. Never going to happen. Now but that doesn't buy me anything. By the same token, I don't deal with a monthly period or all the hormonal things that come in. I can't imagine being a young woman. I don't pretend to know exactly when it occurs, but I can't imagine, because the timing is also never great when you have your first period. That's got to be horrifying. I never dealt with that. And then the monthly, some women you never know, some it's almost debilitating. We don't deal with that. We don't deal with that. And we're never asked to push a baby out of anything, or we would be extinct as a species. Men are not going to do it. We're not going, I'll go kill something and drag it back to the cave. If the dragon lands in the yard, I'll get my axe and I'll go deal with it and we'll see what happens. I'm not pushing a baby out of shit. It's not going to happen. And
Well,
so
I
I
don't wanna
still say
take
to
an
this
axe to
day,
kill anything. I don't wanna kill
say
anything. I'm
again,
not in the mood for that, so that's why we got you.
I can be nurturing, but let's be clear. The woman is going to be more nurturing. And there's going to be people that will disagree. That's fine. But all you got to take a look around. I used to make my son's bottles. We were so poor we didn't even have a microwave. I kept a pot of water on the stove. I'd make his bottles. They'd be in the refrigerator. And I got to the point where I knew what the temperature of the water needed to be, and I could do the little thing and feed him and everything. We figured it out. But the day-to-day nurturing, that bonding, he's still to this day, mom, my mom, and mom. I get it, justify. Again, I'm not going to apologize for being a dude, but I'm not foolish enough to believe anything other than the most important job in the world is that of a mother. It's just that simple. There's dads out there that do amazing things that are great, but there is nothing like a mother's love and a mother's nurturing. Look at nature. Look at nature. It tells you what you need to know.
Let me ask.
The point is, well, okay, bring us back. You bring us back because
No, no,
you're
tell me what
smarter
the
than
point
me.
the point is. I wanna hear.
Well, I firmly believe that being collaborative is the way that we get the most done in the gym. There's a new thing now where people are bitching and they'll say, well, that's tribal. Damn right it's tribal. That's how we're wired. Are you not paying attention? Are you not paying attention? What is the mystery? Clearly I'm a little frustrated with humanity for a different amount of reasons. But you're saying tribal, you're weaponizing a term that is very real and very positive. Not being tribal is how the Unabomber happens. When you use the 1% in an argument, go fuck yourself. Come on. Come on. So, I mean, seriously.
Mhm.
Yes, I understand that there's people out there in Alaska and in the Amazon River Basin, and they live by themselves and they're super happy. But I'm not going, and neither are you, okay? And you're not taking your kids or any of that other shit. You're not going. You see what I'm saying? However, we have a lot of case studies where when people start isolating, that really bad shit happens. And so we're tribal by nature. We're meant to be social. We're meant to work together. Here's what I believe for what this means to you. Regardless of how you feel religiously or about faith, and we can have that conversation another time. I believe we are charged with taking care of one another.
Mm,
I believe if I can lift you up, then I should. Notice I didn't say if you were a Southern Baptist,
right.
then I need to pick you up and fill it. No, that's not what I said. period. Humanity. And so I look at those things in a group situation and in a team situation because we tend to flourish in those situations. It's why I quit coaching one-on-one and now we have a group. There's an energy, there is a connection, and those things are so vital to what we do, not only in the gym, but everywhere else that we live. Everywhere else we go, every endeavor that we take, there's always people, there's always connection. And when that connection is good, it helps us when there's difficulty, and then it helps us even more when things are going well. So I firmly believe that takes me all the way back, and I'll Tarantino this, and where being collaborative is vital. It is literally the make or break in how I coach and how I'm able to reach the lifter. And as many times as I'm teaching people, I'm also learning. Every time somebody new comes in the gym, they bring a different skill set, or we've got a friend in common. I know she's going to hear this, but you know that I'm not blowing smoke, and you know that I'm telling the truth. What an interesting person. Notice I didn't say woman,
Yeah.
because I think it's not that it's diminishing. I think it's dismissive, because I don't treat my athletes based on their gender. Yeah, I just think that's a mistake. I've heard coaches go, well, studies show that women can train more and with more intensity and recover better than men. But does that mean that that's how I should coach them? Or should I get to know them? Should I become invested in them so they will invest in me, believe what I'm teaching them? Because this is all now we're getting back to, how do we deal with grief? How do we deal with fear? How do we deal with mental blocks? Well, if they don't feel I'm invested in them, they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to hear a word I say. It's going to go in, it's going to go out, and it's going to hold on to nothing. So
Preach.
I'm one of the, probably my greatest asset is what I'm willing to invest. Now, is it also my greatest downfall? Yeah, because people frustrate the shit out of me when they don't do what they're supposed to do. I take it very personally.
Yeah.
Would I rather be that, or would I rather be,
Isolated,
and I'm not doing that.
right?
I'm not this, like, I wish, if you know football, in the old days of the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Landry was one of those coaches where you couldn't tell whether he was winning or losing the game. He's very nondescript, very unemotional. He just didn't show it. I am not that guy. So, like in videos, I coached Jennifer Milliken I went to 2 world championships with her. And you never realize how loud you are until you play back the video of the meet, and you can distinctively hear where I'm cueing her and things like that. But we've been all over the world at this particular moment I'm thinking about. We were in Belarus. We're pretty far away from home. I knew that hearing my voice, not that my voice was special, but that the consistency of what she heard every day in the gym was ringing through all that noise, all this big hall, this opulent hall that we were in. I'm connected. I can hear him. And I think those are the things, when we're invested in one another, that when difficulty comes as an athlete, when there is a mental block, when there is an emotional situation, when there is grief, I think those are the things that, whether we have a plan or not, sometimes we just don't fucking know. Sometimes the appropriate answer is, I don't know. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to have you lean into me. I'm going to grab the seat of your pants, and I'm going to keep you upright, and we're going to walk through this fire, and we're going to figure this out. How I feel about something is how I feel about it. The person that's ass deep in alligators may feel very different. So I have to be willing to go out there with them and figure out what's going on. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes honestly, it's ridiculous. But how they feel it doesn't matter. I've got kids in the gym. These guys are 14, 15, 16, and 17, and they are in love. All right.
Aw, cute.
But they are. But is it going to, it doesn't matter what it's
Right.
going to be. It matter.
Mhm.
Support where they're at right now, teach them. And here's my job in that situation. If everything continues to go well, I clap. Good job, brother. And if it flies apart, then I'm there to help them pick up the pieces. I'm going to tell you why all this is important now. I live by a system that's a little bit older. I'm not one of these people that said, back in my day when we walked to school uphill in the snow twice, both ways, and all this, that's when men were men and it was the golden age, and that was when we were living. No, it wasn't. It was bullshit. There's nothing better than what we're doing right now. Now think about this. Think about in any other scenario prior to the past couple of years, how would I ever have gotten to meet you?
Yeah.
How? I am connected to people globally. And I in my little computer room in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. How? How's that possible? So let's dispense with how great things used to be. There's nothing greater than the moment that we're alive right now. And I firmly believe that. Have I been blessed to have this ridiculous amount of success? Yes. Did it make me $1 million? No. None of the sports I did and that I won at made me a lot of money. But it enriched my life to the point that the wealth that I have is incredible. Look, we live, I have a 4-bedroom house. There's a TV in each room because when I'll have people come and I want them to be as comfortable as possible. I have this ridiculous gym. My gym has more square footage than my house.
I believe it.
And all of other than my house payment, basically everything is paid for. I own 3 vehicles. And I'm just your average Joe. We're so fortunate to live in a time where the life that we have, the abundance that we have is amazing. I'm never going to have $1 million contract like some of the other professional
Like
athletes.
my father has and
Well,
didn't
that's
appreciate family or any of that, and now he's the richest poor man I've ever met in my life. Like him? Okay, yeah.
well, but there's a point there
Yeah.
where money buys only so much, and you got to have it, and it's important, and it has to be a priority. But if that's the whole focal point, you're always going to miss out. You're always going to lose. And when I have someone in the gym that is willing to be open with me, not just laugh, not just clap and be excited about a new personal record. I live in a time, and forgive me because I don't want to miss this because I think this is so, so important. This is what I firmly believe. In your husband's absence, if you are with me, your children are my responsibility. That doesn't mean that you're weak. There's not anything about you that would make me feel inclined that any facet of you is weak. It's not the point. You are cherished. You are special. And by nature of being a real man, it is our job. We are wired to protect you, protect the children. It should be intuitive that we as men, and that when we see wrongdoing happen, that we get involved. It would not be the first time I've punched a dude for being an asshole. I'm not saying go in guns a-blazing. That's not what I'm saying. There's time and place for that. So what does that really mean? As a coach, our clergy, our neighbors, because we don't know our neighbors anymore. If we truly believe that it takes a village, and I believe that it does, we have these 2 incredible abilities that are vital in how we shape a person, especially a kid's life, but an athlete's life. We can rob them of the joy of what they do, or we can enrich their lives to the point that it becomes part of the fabric of who they are.
You're creating such a great legacy. I feel like you're the new voice in an athlete's head when they're down on themselves and they have that negative voice in their head. I
Right,
feel like
right.
you do a great job at becoming that new voice. You know?
Sometimes I try. I do try really hard. I am not perfect, but to try to speak to your question, unfortunately, there's coaches out there that when you watch them and how they treat their athletes, that they're successful in spite of themselves. I find high school is the worst
Mm.
because there's basically daddy ball that happens where you've got dads that are donating. I've seen it where you're watching the quarterback is the coach's kid, and that poor kid doesn't know shit from apple butter. You know, that's Southern, by the way. For this kid, doesn't have a clue.
I love it.
You know, and you know that the kid on the sideline. I give you an example. The guy's kid was the quarterback. He gets injured, and he's out for the season. And the kid that should have been starting, we all knew in the stands should be starting. He goes in. It's a completely different team. That is daddy ball. Or you see the guy's truck from his company outside the locker room every day when you're picking your kid up because he's donating money. And so his kid is starting who shouldn't, he should be fishing, not playing football. In those situations, I watched it kill the passion for playing football in my son. It broke my heart. And now he went on to do other things, but I've seen this in other coaches where when some of these kids that come to my gym, some other coaches, when they speak about these coaches, it's not in reverence. They don't have a good memory or a good experience. And I think in that situation, when you rob a kid of joy of something, it sets the tone that bleeds over into other facets of their life. See, look, powerlifting is something I do. It is not who I am. Now, the journey that I've been on to become who I am in this sport, the 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 tools, the skill set that is required, and the manner in which I pursued this, that is very defining. But it doesn't limit me to just powerlifting. I can do it to anything. So I can apply that set of skills to any aspect of my life. I've told this story many, many times. Jessica came to the gym when she was 15, she and her twin brother. And they drove well, I remember them coming into the gym to tell me they both had turned 16 and got their license. Because you're that figure in their life. With a lot of these younger kids, it's their parents and it's me. And I've got a lot of stories I could tell you about that. But in this particular case with Jessica, she turns 16. We train at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's early. She's a teenage girl. She's 16. She's in high school. And I'm her coach. She comes, she gets up. She would beat her brother here. She usually was the first one in the gym. She knew she had to get started. And then she would come upstairs before I had a bathroom for the gym. She would come upstairs, be in the house, and get ready in one of the bathrooms. And then from there, she would go on to school. The level of commitment that requires and trust,
Yeah.
you know, and that's something I've never taken for granted. The fact that not only women, but young women and their parents, I'm sorry,
Who's that? No, I love it. This is your biggest
Walter,
fan over here.
Walter, what
Oh.
is wrong with you? Here,
He's like,
come here.
"Where's my moment? Where is my moment?" Oh. Oh,
Hey,
no.
I just got a
Pimpin'.
haircut. I just
Who
got
is
a haircut.
what's his name?
Walter.
Walter. Hi, Walter just stole the show. Oh, he's so cute. What kind of doggy
He,
is Walter? Is it a Maltese?
this is a Shih Tzu.
Oh my gosh. So cute.
Are you
Oh,
are you
well,
look,
see
look
see, that takes
are you
trust
Lord?
too. For
are
everybody that's
using
not watching this, Walter is on his back with his legs up with his favorite person in the
it.
world. Look at that.
All right,
And
go
Wade just
play.
became, the softie on the planet. I love it. That's my favorite.
So
So sweet.
I'll tell. So let me get back to Jessica, and then I can tell you a quick story about Walter. Okay, hold on just a second. So anyway, so Jessica, I remember she was really frustrated one time because she was never going to be a national level powerlifter. It wasn't going to happen, but she was doing her best, which is the requirement. I never said your results determine whether you stay here or not. No, I'm interested in your level. Is it great to travel and go to nationals and go to worlds? Of course it is, but that's a very chosen few. But I give the same energy to the people that are just trying to be the best they can. They enjoy doing it. It's a recreational thing. And I remember telling her when she was a little frustrated, I go, you get up in the morning, you come to my house, you train and you work hard, then you get ready in my house and you go to school. And you're a straight A student. And now you're on the cusp. You've got a scholarship. You're going to go to UT, which is where you wanted to go to school. You're going to study agriculture, which is your passion. When you can do the things that you do as a power lifter and apply that skill set to agriculture with that kind of passion, it makes you unstoppable. Now, is it going to make you wealthy? I can't answer that. Not likely, but it can allow you to go where you want to go and be what you want to be. And she teaches school. She married a guy that she loves very much and loves her very much. And they have a baby girl. And they were both at my 60th birthday. And, you know, she's long been an adult. This life that we're talking about as a teenager, that's been long ago. And that is the relationship that as an athlete and a coach, where we pushed her talent and her ability as far as we could, but it honed her skill set to where now she is sharing what she is impassioned about with her students and raising a family. It's oh, how bigger of a success story can you have? That brings me an immense amount of joy. I'm telling you the sum of the story, but there was a lot of difficult moments, a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, and we would just talk through it and work it out and keep trying. I think one of the things you learn throughout all this is what happens if you just try
Mm.
and what happens if you keep trying. I mean, we know what the results are going to be if we do nothing, you know. And to the people that say quitting is not an option, that's actually not the truth. Quitting is the most viable and readily available option. And
Have
so
you
it's
had
what you
sorry to interrupt. Have you had people that have, like, broken your heart, like, that you
sure.
thought yeah, and they just got in their own way and gave up? Or
Yes. There are
yeah.
people that I have found. Man, talent and potential is one of the most dangerous combinations on the planet because if it's not met, it's like pissing in the wind. We're not getting much done here,
It's true.
you know. And I have seen it to where it's just like, or not to make it all negative. There are times where it's like, this is just it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna coach these people as long as they want to come. I'm gonna be honest with them. I'm gonna tell them the truth. And eventually it takes care of itself. I just think I've checked that box and I'm gonna do something else. Very good.
When as a coach do you know a person's, like, like, when you know that they can't go any further? Does it take is that months? Is that years? Is that
It really
weeks?
depends on the situation. I think most people, like I've had people that came that just wanted to get strong and lift in a powerlifting strength environment, but never wanted to compete. And then they go and they win a nationals, even a
Oh,
world championships.
oh, wow.
So the people's capacity and ability is usually far beyond what the scope in which they see themselves. But it it's never a situation where I feel like I've coached a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people come and go. What usually happens is you see the effort fall off. They're not willing to work hard. They're not willing to push themselves. Probably the biggest thing that I teach people, getting strong is not hard. It's just not that. It's, there's not all this stuff if you see on Instagram and all these coaches and all this complicated. Oh my God, it's not. It's not. And if they're telling you that, then they're full of shit. Okay. Now, what is difficult and why I have a job is I need to be able to mold that strength and make it something where you can go to a competitive platform and display that strength. That is a huge chasm. There's strong people in the gym that completely crumble under the pressure of competition. You know, that's not a new thing. And so usually what I see is people have relied on talent and not effort, or they get to the point to where it's hard, because once you get good at something, it's really, really hard to keep making progress. You only get to do that for, the when you first start and you're benching 225, and the next thing you're 315, and now you're ready to bench over 400 pounds. Well, it may take a lot of time. I see people come in and they want a total elite or be a world champion, and they give it a timeline that is almost 100% of the time the root of failure. It takes the time that it takes. Some people are extremely talented, extremely genetically gifted, but to be elite and at a high level, or to reach your full potential, it requires hard work, and you got to be consistent. Do I see where people falter? Yeah, and they lose interest because it's hard. One of the things I tell people all the time, what I love about strength is the premise of strength is a very simple process, but it's really hard, and not everybody can do it. And it's one of those things that's not really a recreational sport. You and I can go, hey, there's this great creek and there's trout in it, and we're going to go to Walmart and we're going to get fishing reels and some bait, and we're fishermen. We're fishing, and we're probably catching fish. You and I can go to Walmart and get a basketball and a hoop, and we're not going to be playing for the NBA, but we're shooting hoops. We're basketball players. I cannot call you and go, hey, next weekend down the road is a meet. Let's go deadlift 500 pounds. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. And so I appreciate the fact that while we're seeing masses of people involved in strength sports, it is not just a sport where you can go, I'm going to train a couple of times a month and I'm going to go compete and do well. It will not happen. And so that's what I love about strength, but it's also what weeds out the wannabes.
If you're really going into a competition, is there a window of like the 6 weeks, or how does that work?
Well, I think it depends. It depends on the lifter. Depends on their level. I like about 12 to 16 weeks with someone that's been training to prepare for a competition. That seems like a long time, and I'm like, well, depending on the type of training, if it's not a high frequency setting, you're looking at squatting once a week where you're focused on your competition squat, for example. Well, if it's a 16-week cycle, 4 months sounds like a long time, but we're going to get 15 training weeks and then a deload week. So we've got 15 opportunities over a 4-month period to address whatever issues and get stronger. All of a sudden, it didn't seem like a whole lot of time. And so that's why it's imperative. I think it's hard for a lifter that is inexperienced to be prepared for a meet in 8 weeks. I know people that do it. I don't think that that's my opinion and my experience is that's just not enough time to create a positive outcome. Um,
But wait, also, aren't like, isn't if a person wants to do it in 8 weeks, aren't you missing the beauty of the passion for it? However long it takes, it takes. Why is everyone in a rush?
That's a
in this
great question. That is such a great, and I ask that question a lot. I go, "What is your hurry?" I proved to me what I needed to do. I've done everything, and I'm so fortunate. When I say that, I want to make sure people understand there was a lot of generous, supportive people throughout my entire career, and people that believed in me. And I did not do all this by myself, not even a little bit. But why are we in such a hurry? The thing that I miss the most, it's not the competitions, no, which I miss, but I'm coaching, so I'm engaged in all that. I miss the pursuit of the next number. That brought me the most joy of everything I did in strength sports. And so when you go through things, or people have challenges, an old injury, or there's congenital issue, and fear issues and all those other things, and the things that you go through to not only get better but to overcome whatever obstacles you have, I think is an amazing thing. So why do I want to rush? I'm going to take you on, we're going to train for 8 weeks and then you've done all this hard work and go, well, that's it. That's as good as you're ever going to be. Well,
Mhm.
that blows. That's not fun. And so it's like, I try to tell people, don't get so, celebratory that you can't remember that Monday is bench day.
Yep.
Let's work. Let's work hard. Let's prepare. Let's understand that we might have to make some adjustments to that plan, but we're going to have a plan. And then the results will be what they'll be. The chips will fall where they may. And we'll deal with those results. We'll make assessments from that. And then it's time to get back to work. It's what we love to do. We love to train. We love to compete. So let's enjoy these processes and learn to celebrate your efforts as opposed to the results. The results are going to be, you can't win everything. Everything is not going to go your way. Things happen that are beyond your control. That's the big difference in training or working. Imagine doing your show live. I don't know, pick a spot. It would be a very different atmosphere for you. I think you would adjust quickly, but that's a daunting process. It's just like being in the gym. I've got 10-foot ceilings in some places, and then you go squat in the area where it's dark and there's spotlights and there's PA and the ceilings are 30 feet tall. Everything's different now, and it's no longer that controlled environment. And so all those things, though, those are the things that get your juices flowing. Why rush through all that? So I was asked one time, Eric Fiorillo, God rest his soul, he asked me to write a blog for his website one time. What am I regretful for in my career as a strength athlete? And I had one regret, and that is I did not take enough time to enjoy everything that I did. I would get done with the meet. All I wanted to talk about was the critical aspect of it, and it was time to get back to work. To the point that it would put pressure on even my son. I remember very vividly, and I think this will speak to what you're saying. We had gone to a meet. I'd hit this ridiculous total. I had missed my third squat and my third bench. I had a lifetime PR in the deadlift. Well, they were all lifetime PRs in competition. And we spent the night. We had a meal. We swam in the pool and had a good time. And I'm getting in the truck. We're driving back, and he goes, "Man, you got to feel so good about your lifts. You hit this huge total. It was amazing." And all I could talk about was that missed squat and that missed bench. I couldn't, in that moment, I couldn't share his joy that he had for me for what I achieved. And I have really worked hard since then, because fast forward, when I totaled 2,400, which was the apex of my strength, I was 45 years old and I squatted over 1,000 pounds. That's rarefied air. I'm very, very fortunate. I know it's ridiculous.
Amazing.
Because and I can say that, I can speak to that because the thought of it now is terrifying. And I
Or
did it. You can Google it. I remember coming off the platform after hitting my last deadlift. There's people clapping, there was cameras flashing, and I'm coming off of the platform. People are shaking my hand and hugging me, people I don't even know. And I was like, my career wasn't over, but I had gone. I knew I would never be able to push my body like that ever again. I had this super long career. Now, I was fortunate that I did some other things and it revived my career. And I apparently had another 10 years in me that I didn't realize. But it all eventually comes to an end. There just comes a point where you just can't do what you used to do. So celebrating not the results. The results are going to be what they're going to be. And sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, but you celebrate the effort. Your truest measure is the effort that you give something. You've been a mom. You ever fall flat on your face? I bet you have. And
Daily, but I look at the small wins, right? You gotta
right,
look at the small.
and those are the things that you stack those little wins. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to tell lifters when they're all upset. I know you're disappointed in me. I go, why would I be disappointed? You know, take the win. Go home, get some rest, eat a pizza, and sit down and be still.
Yeah.
Have a steak, be still. It's going to be fine. You want to be the CEO of a company by the time we're 25. And I'm like, what, when you start your journey and when you get to wherever that goal is, that's where all the work and the joy and the fun and the living occurs. When we set a goal, we have our little board or a little chart. And our start point is in the lower left-hand corner. We put a dot in this little polite A, point A. And then in the top right-hand corner, we put our destination, our goal, with another polite B. And then we draw a straight line. That doesn't even occur in fucking fantasy land.
Right?
Look at The Hobbit. Look at all that bullshit that Frodo goes through. That's not fun, and it's not a straight fucking line either. There's a lot of shit that happens, you know, and it takes like 4 or 5 movies to get to the point where he goes, "Oh," "Oh," you know? So look at all the things that transpired and look at how when you see the end of the movie, and this is a fictional thing, but it's real life. Look at how they changed. Look at how they grew. Look at the differences that came about in them and the changes that they brought upon each other in the world. That's pretty heavy now, isn't it? All of a sudden, you start seeing the gravity and the importance of the journey that we're on. I wouldn't trade anything that I've done and the hardships that I had to go through to have my little gym. You wouldn't believe the shit I've gone through. Nobody, but most of the people that train here now, they just come in and they see all this stuff is here and let's get to work. This is awesome. But they don't understand. But it's my journey and because of what I went through, it shaped me and molded me into the coach that I am now. And I'll match that up with anybody. I don't give a shit who you are. You know.
I love
Anyway,
it. I thank you so much for all the insight and the personal developments, and you're whoever you coach is just so lucky, and everyone listening to this is, I know, taking so much from it. I do. Every time I talk to you, I'm like, "Oh, this is like an old friend I'm talking to, not no bullshit with you, Wade." That's one of my favorite things
well,
ever.
I hope, I I want to be I want to be impactful, but I want to be authentic while we do it. And I want people to feel like they can be who they are when they're training here and doing what they do, and know that if they want to keep coming, if they will commit to the effort, I'll commit to the time.
You're a class act, Wade. I'm so
Well, you're
glad.
very, very kind to say that. I hope
Um,
we'll do this some more.
yes, I've got so much more to learn. I love that I had all these notes and you and I just talked, and it was just
Yes.
better than anything. I thank you for this conversation, and you're wonderful, and yeah, we'll talk soon.